Hello and welcome to Dog Lovers Live. I'm James Jacobson in Maui, Hawaii, and we are joined by Kate Berlin, who is a veterinarian in Pennsylvania. I want to thank you for coming and listening to our show today and connecting with us, because Dog Lovers Live is all about introducing dog lovers to new podcasts and new YouTube channels and things that may be of interest if you love your dog. And I'm so delighted to have Katie Berlin on with us, because I know Katie as a guest on another show that we do at Dog Podcast Network, which is called Dog Cancer Answers, because she's a veterinarian and she has a really interesting take on all things veterinary, which is why she has a show called The Vet Reset. Katie, thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
So tell us a little bit about The Vet Reset.
Well, the Vet Reset, I started thinking about it years ago because I am very excited about physical wellness and how that intersects with mental health. And in veterinary medicine, I don't know how much of the audience is aware, but there is kind of a mental health crisis going on in veterinary medicine. And we have a lot of our field is struggling with mental health issues and just burnout and depression. We've lost far too many vets and veterinary technicians to suicide. And so this is something I'm really passionate about, but I feel like physical health and physical wellness plays a key role in preventing those mental health crises as much as we can. I don't think it fixes everything, but I'm a huge fan of exercise and eating well and taking that opportunity to take care of yourself. And so the Vet Reset is a podcast about basically the intersection of those two things in veterinary medicine. So I talk to a lot of people in the profession who have found ways to make that work, who've discovered kind of their own unique path in veterinary medicine. And the common denominator is that physical health and wellness is a part of it for all of them.
Let's talk a little bit about the genesis of this, which is the fact that many people don't know outside of the veterinary profession, is that suicide is such a massive problem within vet medicine. Why is that, and how recently did this come to be known?
I wish I could tell you a single answer why. I think it's multifactorial, just like most things. Veterinarians are naturally empathetic people. We feel a lot for our patients and for our, the patients' families, and for each other. We're put in very emotional situations multiple times a day, and we have to compartmentalize and move on to the next appointment as if nothing's happened. And that tends to take a toll on you. Veterinarians also carry an enormous amount of student debt on average. I think the average debt is probably over $150,000 now at graduation. And we don't get paid like MDs do. So it takes us a lot longer to pay that back, if we ever can pay it back. I have many colleagues who owe, close to $500,000 in debt. And that obviously is a huge weight. And then you have some difficulties with communication sometimes, just because every veterinarian, like I said, finds themselves in emotional situations every day. And there's a person on the other side of that situation who's bringing their pet to us and who's really emotional as well. And those people sometimes can react in ways where they're not prepared to listen or have a two-way conversation, and we can kind of bear the brunt of that. So veterinarians and our teams can really, kind of take a beating by clients who are upset at situations that we can't necessarily control or fix. And that's not their fault, but it definitely adds up when it's not just one client. So I think there's a host of other things we could talk about, but those I think are the big ones. Client interactions, emotional situations with naturally feeling people, and money.
Is the prevalence of suicide among veterinarians, is it even comparable to other medical professions?
I believe we are one of the highest. We may be the highest now. So, not a distinction anybody wants.
Right.
People used to talk about dentists as having a very high suicide rate, and now, I think for veterinarians, it's 2.5 to 3 times that of the general population.
Hmm.
And I would be remiss if I didn't say that we also do have access to drugs, which the general population often does not.
Right, because
But
that's of suicides from vets. That's generally how it's done, using the same.
it's it's not always, but yes. And so
Right.
blocking,
They're accessible. They do it
they're
on a
accessible. Yes,
regular
they need to
basis.
be
Yeah, they know
accessible.
how.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. But certainly we lose veterinarians far too often to other methods as well. And so it's not just the access to drugs.
So, what was it like what was the thought process? Because clearly, this is a big problem, and this is something that is discussed at veterinary conferences and has been
Mhm.
discussed in hushed tones. But to come out and do a podcast that really focuses on the mental health aspects and tolls of veterinary medicine, what was that like for you?
Well, I think, we have a lot of people in the profession who have been talking about this for a while. One of them is a good friend, and we actually had done a podcast together for a little while. Her name is Carrie Journey, and she's one of the sort of OG admins of the Not One More Vet group, which is a support group for veterinarians. Now they're a nonprofit, and they raise money to help struggling vets and vet support staff. And so she's been talking about this, and her, colleagues have been talking about this for years now. And so it doesn't feel, I think this is a good thing. It doesn't feel groundbreaking now to talk about it, because we are all so much more vocal about it in the profession. But you're right, outside the profession, people still don't know. But the vet reset, what I wanted to do was, I don't believe in putting on rose-colored glasses or putting a positive spin on everything, because there are some things that just, they aren't going to be positive no matter how you look at them. But what I felt the need for after a few years in practice and feeling really burned out and just feeling the weight of all those things already as a young vet, I felt the need for hope, and the idea that what I was doing day to day and my experience day to day, that A, I was not alone, and that B, I could change it, that I would have the power to change it. And I have to say that the biggest thing that gave me the confidence to change my day-to-day life in the profession, and also to encourage others to do it, and to take more enjoyment from my work again, is physical fitness. I was not an athlete growing up. I was like the bookish kid. And
We kind of grew up in the same neck of the woods.
yeah, yes, we did.
We went to sister brother schools, but we
We
didn't know each other
did.
in high school. Yeah.
No, and I was definitely not, there were a lot of athletics at our two schools, and I was not out there. I was in the
Me
library.
neither.
Yeah. And so I hurt myself falling off a horse at some point, and ended up going to this rehab gym, and I started to work out for serious, and then I started running, and now, I run almost every day and lift weights, and it just the power to change who I thought I was, not necessarily a physical change and say, oh, I look different, or, anything like that, but more just that you don't have to be stuck with the person that you thought you would always be. And so if you're not happy in that situation, you do have the power to change things, maybe one thing at a time, but you do have that power. And fitness actually is what triggered that for me. And I wanted to share that, and I wanted to talk to other people who had made similar discoveries. And so the one thing I ask all the guests on the Vet Reset is, what's your reset moment? And everybody has something, that moment where could be 6 months a moment, or it could be one, bolt of lightning, but there's always something that makes them say, I've got to do something different. I can't go on like this. And then they do it.
What are some of the more memorable shows that you've done?
Oh my gosh. Well, like, I've loved all the conversations, and this is a pretty young podcast still. So it's easy for me to say I remember pretty much every conversation because there haven't been that many, but I very early on, I have a friend, Phil Richmond, who's a veterinarian in Florida, and we've never actually met in person, but we've spent countless hours talking online and on the phone. And we met in a really serendipitous way, actually, which I could tell you if you want. But he's one of those people that, you meet and you're just meant to be friends with. It just, you were supposed to meet somehow.
You just clicked, yeah.
Yes. And, the universe put us together for a reason. And he's just been such an inspiration to me over the last year. I had a really hard year last year, in addition to all the things that made everybody's year hard. And he was there for me, even though we barely knew each other. And he has a really inspiring personal story where, I can share this because he shared it on the show, and he talks about it so well. So, definitely worth listening to his telling of it. But he was considering suicide himself as a veterinarian, and he had a dependence on alcohol, and he turned his life around. He, instead of sinking, he chose to swim. And he did it with a lot of support from his family and friends, but he did the work. And in his recovery, he learned so much about how to, deal with hard feelings and tackle toxic situations and take control of the things that you feel are out of your control. And, got really into the field of positive psychology. And that's something that we've bonded about because I'm really excited about that area too. And, now he's certified in a million things and he's teaching it to other people and he's speaking on the vet circuit and he's just amazing. And I just think, he's got so much to share and there's so many people like that in our field that I'm glad they're finding their voices now and talking about those hard things.
How do you grow your audience among veterinarians? Who are your primary listeners?
Probably my friends. That's how it always
Katie's
starts,
got
right?
a podcast.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm also very lucky to have been in a community called the Uncharted Veterinary Community, where there's a lot of kind of doers and shakers in there. And so I actually ended up meeting a lot of people that way who are also connected and into social media and doing their own podcasts and things like that. And so they've helped a lot because they will share also and they'll listen and tell their friends about it and they know everyone. So it's definitely true that networking matters when you can do it. But occasionally I'll get a message from a stranger who just says, hey, I'm really glad you said that thing because it's what I needed to hear today. And those mean so much to me.
Well, let's talk about that because I imagine that because you are talking about such a tender subject and that has the overarching theme. I mean, you're probably drawing an audience, at least of some vets who are really frustrated at work.
Yeah.
You have some stories that you can share.
I mean, I think the most meaningful interactions about the show, besides obviously the people who have to love me because they're my friends, but the people who, might
easy
be
to love, Kate.
But the people that, send me a message on Instagram or drop a comment on a post and just say, I thought I was the only one. That's the big thing to me is you're never the only one. I mean, in this world, there's people who feel and do literally everything. So no matter what, good or bad, it's not ever just you, right? But when it comes to the feelings of being trapped and burned out and hopeless, and I don't know if I should be feeling these things because, this is something I want everybody to know, and dog lovers especially, because dog lovers are my favorite people. Like I just was watching some video on Facebook, where it's just like people doing cute things with dogs. And I was crying sitting here at my desk watching this video because it was just so cute and we don't deserve dogs. They're so amazing. So, but I feel like I want everyone who loves dogs and cats to know that we feel everything so deeply, and when
We
we're
veterinarians.
we veterinarians, we veterinary technicians, veterinary support team members, we do that job because we want to feel those feelings, and we want those videos on Facebook of people loving on their dogs. That is why we come to work, is because we know if we can make that last longer and be better and those dogs be healthier for longer, then that's the best possible job there is ever.
Okay.
And that's a lot of pressure to put on ourselves. And so sometimes at work, I would just sit there and just feel crushed by this pressure. Like, I have a diploma, and that makes me the person to go to save this bond, to make this happen for these people and these dogs. And that's just really heavy weight. And before I discovered Not One More Vet and got in touch with that community, I thought it might just be me. I thought I went to all this school and I did all this learning, and now I'm this doctor, and I just feel so alone and tired. And finding other people who felt that way, or who maybe had felt that way and got better, figured out a way to get through it and to love what they did without feeling it quite so heavy. That changed everything. So those messages mean the most to me when people say, I thought it was just me.
It's building a sense, it's building a community, and they're hearing it through the very intimate medium of podcasting.
Yeah.
Do you find that you're getting an audience outside the United States, or is it mainly US vets?
I have had a couple of vets message me on Instagram who don't live in the States, but we never got into a long conversation or anything, so I didn't get to learn too much about them. But this definitely is a widespread, theme. I think the U.S. has some particular issues that, the student debt issue, for instance, isn't as much of a problem in some other countries, but they also get paid very little. To be a vet in the UK versus here, the salary is dramatically different, but they're not necessarily paying it all towards student debt.
And they don't have the debt. And the whole, and when you and I talked eons ago, we will put a link in the show notes for this.
That was such a fun talk, though.
We talked about the other side of the table, and we talked a little bit about some of the things that most people don't want to talk about, including the fact that not only is there all this mountain of student debt that so many veterinarians have, but also it's a business, and they don't necessarily go into veterinary medicine wanting to be an entrepreneur.
Yes, that's definitely true. And at the same time, we go into business having to make a living. And, I don't have kids. Many of my good friends are, have young kids, and practice owners, are trying to support a family with the income from that practice. And so we do have to make a living. And I've never met a group of people who hated to admit that more than veterinarians, because we would do this for free if we could make money some other way, Because,
my side gig is I'll do some surgery.
Yeah. But we would, because we want your dog to be healthy. We want that horse to live as long as possible. We don't want cats to be in pain. We want to do all those things and not have money ever be a factor. But at the same time, if we give away something for free because we feel bad for that person or that pet, then somebody else gets a lower salary who works for us, or we don't get to, buy a car. And, I have colleagues who are driving cars with 250,000 miles on them, and they're doctors who have been out of school for 15 years. The myth that veterinarians are in it for the money is probably one of the biggest contributors to stress, I think, among colleagues that I've seen.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the other stressors, and you alluded to those earlier in the conversation, which is that sometimes clients are just not very nice.
I mean, sometimes we're all not very nice, right? Like, right. I certainly would never say that clients always have to come in and
I know your clients are always perfect.
Sunny. Yeah.
You've heard anecdotes of
yes. Yeah. I've never had that experience, but I think with experience, I've developed a much greater appreciation for the fact that everybody's going through something. And so it's a lot easier to shake it off for me now than it used to be. If a client is rude or accuses me of something that I think is very unfair, but there are obviously situations where I haven't been able to shake it off, or I've reacted in a way I'm not proud of, or that I just couldn't help, because we all will get defensive when we feel cornered. But for the most part, there's always a reason. And the reason almost always comes down to communication. So, the hardest interactions we have are the ones where clients don't understand what we're trying to do or what we're trying to tell them. And we somehow just don't connect. And it could be about money. It could be about the treatment we're suggesting. It could be that we have 3 emergencies already in the hospital and we have to send you to the emergency clinic. We can't see your pet that day. All of those things can end really well with the feeling that everybody's on the same side and just wants the pet to be well. And they can also go completely the other direction. And that's very hard.
What role has the pandemic had in increasing the stress that veterinarians feel?
We talk about this a lot in our circles because we are all insanely busy. And I'm sure everybody watching this or listening has probably had some experience this past year and a half of trying to get a vet appointment and they haven't been able to, either with a new pet and the clinics aren't seeing new pets, or you want to get in within a certain time period and that there's just no appointments available, or your regular vet has turned you away saying they're too busy. And, that's happening where I work too. And I think it's partly because people are adopting new pets. We have a lot of people adopting and buying pets over the last year and a half because they're at home alone. They're at home and they have time to have a puppy, and they're lonely because we can't do things socially. But there are also new protocols we have to take that take longer. Curbside, for instance, a lot of us are still doing curbside or partly curbside where you wait in the car and your pet comes in with us. Clients don't tend to like that too much, which I understand. And it also takes longer because then we have to do everything and then call and then do the things we talk about doing and then call again. We just can't see as many pets when things take longer like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we also are a bit short-staffed. Some of us are very short-staffed.
Because it's hard to find vet techs who want to or can work?
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's seen those articles, that are out like in Wall Street Journal and stuff about people resigning, the Great Resignation, during the pandemics. People are just like, I don't want to do this job anymore, so I'm not going to. And they just, decide to do something else. And veterinary technicians have an extremely short lifespan in the profession. I think the average, career for a vet tech is like 5 years. Mm-hmm. It's really sad. And they work really hard, really long hours. They don't get paid what they're worth. And benefits are hard to find. And they carry all the emotional burden that we do. But they don't get recognized for it nearly as much. They have a really, really hard job. And they all universally love pets an insane amount. And it really hurts them not to be able to do it, but they sometimes just have to leave. And this past year has been really hard on vet staff.
Have clients become a little nastier or kinder, or are they pretty much about the same?
I think both. I think we've seen that with the pandemic in general is like, some people have gotten to the point where they're at their wit's end. They're stretched very thin. And it doesn't take much to make them snap. And sometimes that thing is going to be that I want you to wear a mask when you come into the building, or I can't see your pet today for something that isn't an emergency because I'm already treating an emergency. And while those things might not normally make that person snap, it's like the 10th thing today that got them closer to the edge. And I get that because I've been on that edge just like everybody else this past year and a half. But some people have been kind even more so than they would normally be because they see how hard it is for us. And they see the posts online from their friends who work in vet med, and they understand what we're facing and that it's not our fault. And they make up by far, in my opinion, for all of the people that are nasty, because generally speaking, the people that are nasty, it's not personal. And the people that are kind, it feels very personal.
Let's talk about some of the things that you do in your life to reset so that you don't bring that home and that you can calm down. And you were saying running is a big thing for you.
Running's a big thing. Yeah. And I actually had back surgery last December. So my back was bothering me for most of 2020. So I couldn't do very much running in 2020, and I couldn't do any strength training or yoga even. And biking was hard. And I was left without an outlet for a lot of that. And it was very hard. So that was one reason why 2020 was like extra for me, because
I'll take
I was
extra fries with that. Yeah.
I was hard to love last year. Let me tell you what. But surgery changed everything. And thankfully I'm running again. And, that is my biggest stress reliever, but it's not therapy. People say running is my therapy. I don't think that's true. I think there's a difference between clearing your mind and running away from the things that are stressing you out and actually sitting down and doing the work and dealing with them. And so that's something that I definitely believe in too, is, not just finding ways to escape the hard stuff, but also finding a safe place to sit and deal with it for a little bit.
Do you deal with it with a therapist?
I was for a little while, and I wasn't having a great experience with that therapist. And so I stopped. But I actually have an appointment with somebody new next week. So we'll see how that goes. But, I think we need to take away the idea that therapy is for broken people and think of it more. My partner and I were talking about this. Think about it more like a coach. You have a coach for business, and you have life coaches and health coaches and sports coaches, and a therapist is basically a coach to help you deal with all the stuff that just runs around willy-nilly in your brain and sometimes can come out in ways you're not aware of. And so I think we could all stand to use a little coaching sometimes.
Do you have, you mentioned yoga. Do you meditate? Do you do some of that inner work on your own?
I should meditate. I don't do that.
I'm dog.
Yeah.
I can recommend a book.
It's the one thing that hasn't stuck. So if you have recommendations, hit me with them, because that's the one thing that I'm just naturally I haven't stayed still this whole conversation. I just want to be doing stuff. I'm thinking about the next thing. And it's just so hard for me. Even though I know.
I wrote a book about it many, many years ago. Do you know that? I did
not know that. No.
It's called How to Meditate with Your Dog.
Oh my gosh.
So it really is designed for, it's just you got to love dogs, and got to be interested. Because people will do things for their dogs that they would never do for themselves. And so
that's true.
Was the impetus behind a lot. We used to get letters from, I remember one letter from someone who said, my dad had open heart surgery, and they said that he just needs to calm down and relieve stress, and he just won't do it. And then I found this book, and he'll do anything for his dog.
Oh, yeah.
And so he started doing it, and now he's meditating 20 minutes a day.
Oh my gosh.
So,
okay, I'm in.
Do it for your dog, Katie.
Yeah, I think my little dog is pretty good at zoning out.
They live in the house. They're hound loungers. They live they live in the present moment.
They do. They do.
Anyway, but running and yoga are definitely awesome, and obviously talking to a therapist, that's pretty good. Have you gotten word from other vets that what your messaging is with the vet reset has really impacted their life in a positive way?
Yeah, I don't know that I've gotten any earth-shattering revelations.
I was on the ledge, but then I
right.
Yeah.
But I think I think it takes time for messages to sink in, and we're just bombarded with messages all the time that if we don't look the way we want to, or we don't feel the way we want to, or we're not healthy, or we're not happy, it's something we're not doing. The wellness culture now is just insane, especially on social media. It's here are all the things you can do, and the juices you can drink, and the workouts you can do, and the clothes you can buy to feel better. And if you don't, it's because you're not working hard enough. Mm-hmm. And I really think that's super toxic. And so I think what I would like to do and the show is changing all the time, and we were talking about this before, is, each conversation teaches me something and takes things in a little bit of a new direction. And I'm sure you've experienced that too. And I love that about it. And I think, the message that I would love to have run through the show like a current is that some things are under your control and some things aren't. And it's okay not to have control over everything or feel like you're, not, you don't have to be responsible for every aspect of your life, and you can just sort of let things be. But if you are not loving where you are or how you're feeling, let's try something. Let's try this one thing. Maybe that thing is to, buy some healthy food and cook for yourself a couple times a week, because that changed my life for sure. I'm not a food is medicine person necessarily. Medicine is medicine, but I think food can definitely make a huge difference in how you feel. Or go for a walk when you would normally watch TV. Those things aren't going to turn your life suddenly perfect, but over time, those things can make you realize that suddenly you feel a little bit better.
Those are awesome thoughts. Katie Berlin, how do folks get in touch with you?
Well, you can find the Vet Reset podcast. Spotify and Apple are the places where I know you can easily find it. And it should be other places too, but I have not checked. So Apple and Spotify are the big ones. Okay. And you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at The Vet Reset. And you can email me at thevetreset@gmail.com.
And the website itself is thevetreset.net.
Thevetreset.net, yes.
It rhymes.
It does.
Katie Berlin, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for being with us today on Dog Lovers Live. And thank you for joining us. This is, as I said, the show that is part of our occasional summer series that we may extend. Let us know if we should. To introduce you to other podcasts and YouTube channels that may be of interest if you're a dog lover. I want to encourage you to visit our website at dogpodcastnetwork.com and learn about all the shows that we have. And you can even listen to the episode that Katie was on Dog Cancer Answers. And we have a lot more planned for the fall, and I hope you will check us out. Again, our website is dogpodcastnetwork.com. I'm James Jacobson. Thank you for tuning in today. Take care until next time. We wish you and your dog a very warm aloha. Bye-bye.
Bye.